And with more, I'm joined by Andrew Barker from the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. Good morning, good to have you along.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having me in.
Tell me, what's your reaction to this news and what we've just heard from Prime Minister Anthony Albanese?
So the first thing is I agree with what the Prime Minister has just said about the great opportunities here. Australia does have great clean energy resources and real opportunities in export of things like ammonia or green metals like aluminium or iron. But what's going to be really important is to make sure we're very clear about the objectives, we're transparent, and we make sure that the best projects are funded.
And this comes after we've seen some pretty big announcements from the Prime Minister in recent weeks around solar production at the former Liddell site and also around the security of rare earth minerals in the Northern Territory. Is this all part of a bigger picture of trying to do what the Prime Minister said there around securing our own supply chains here in Australia?
So that's certainly an aspect of it. I think competition isn't quite the right way to look at it. As other countries move to clean energy and have technological advances, that actually increases the demand for our critical minerals and our clean exports. So that provides an opportunity, and we shouldn't look to go head-to-head, particularly in areas where we can't compete due to higher wages or lower scale here. But rather we should look to work with our trading partners to build up secure supply chains, and that requires an international response, not one just here in Australia.
And then the inevitable question is around workforce capability and the workers to deliver on all of these commitments. Are we there yet?
So that's right. That's an important aspect. We're currently doing some work at CEDA about clean energy precincts, and we'll be releasing a report next month. And what we really find there is it's some of these additional aspects. So the skills, the clean energy skills that we need to build up, improving the planning system so that that's not creating barriers to development, and provision of shared infrastructure, things like roads or pipelines where we need them. So it's a lot more than just subsidising projects.
There have already been, Andrew, some comments today about this being protectionist or protectionism. How do you see it?
Look, what's really important is that we support the right projects with the greatest potential to have a comparative advantage and compete internationally, and so that means it's really important that we do the rigorous analysis to identify where Australia can compete, and it shouldn't be about protecting us in areas where we're actually better importing inputs internationally, but rather making sure we have a strong framework and that we stop supporting projects that aren't stacking up, so having evaluation and monitoring to make sure that we really do have a real advantage and opportunities in the projects that are going ahead.
And when you talk about the right projects, who is it that you think needs to be choosing what those projects are? Is there some body that should be established, some sort of infrastructure fund that does that analysis and makes those decisions, that really taking it out of the hands of politics?
So one of the really positive aspects of the announcements today is the consolidation. So at the moment, we've got over 30 programs supporting hydrogen at a federal level and more than 50 at a state and territory level. So it's very hard to be certain that we're going to support the best projects when it's so fragmented like that. So there's an important role for government. We already have a lot of bodies involved here, ARENA, and also the new Net Zero Economy Agency. So not necessarily a new body, but the real need, if government's going to be providing funding rather than just enabling or guiding these developments, then that upfront assessment and to your point, taking the politics out of it and supporting where we have the greatest economic opportunity.
And from what we know so far, Andrew, do you see major risks around this announcement and this move to a Future Made in Australia Act?
So there are risks that we are transferring from the private sector to the public sector when we subsidise projects, and that requires a really strong framework around it to make sure the opportunities outweigh the risks. So that means having clear objectives, being transparent about the process, and also, as I mentioned earlier, the monitoring and evaluation to ensure you cut your losses on projects that are not succeeding.
And just finally, what do you see as the major opportunities here?
Well, so the big opportunities have been well documented in analysis around Australia's superpower opportunities. So particularly onshoring of metal manufacturing. So the comparative advantage will shift from transporting our coal internationally to manufacture green steel as we've done historically. Now it makes a lot more sense with clean energy to do the manufacture closer to the energy, and given that we have such good wind and solar, there are real opportunities in clean metal manufacturing, such as clean iron and green aluminium.
Andrew Barker from the Committee for Economic Development of Australia, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Dan.